Hello everyone, this is the second of four games I'm going to play, trying to play the same scenario but in each game using a different set of Western rules. And today I'm going to be using Dead Man's Hand, which is a very popular set of rules here in the UK, probably around the world, and it differs a great deal from my last set of rules that I demonstrated, Legends of the Old West. But I'm trying my best to keep the scenario exactly the same. So I'm going to play a bank robbery again, and fortunately for me, there is a bank robbery scenario in Dead Man's Hand. It's called Heist. And again, like the previous game, it involves positioning a bank, which you can see here in the centre of the table. But there are some things that I'm having to kind of change in Dead Man's Hand in order to make the scenario as identical as I can to the previous scenario, because I want to see what the outcomes are for each scenario, and whether each individual set of rules produces the same sort of result. So notably, I've got the table set up in exactly the same way, and it's a 4 foot square table. Now, Dead Man's Hand, it's recommended especially for new players that you play on a 3 foot square table, or biggest of 4 foot by 3. So the distances the figures are going to have to travel. Similarly, they've got to get the loot off the table as they did in the previous game. It's going to be a little bit harder for them to accomplish because the table's a little bit bigger. And here, in this scenario, and in fact in all Dead Man's Hand scenarios, you're supposed to have a main thoroughfare with buildings on either side, but I'm calling this part of the main thoroughfare. There aren't, as I explained, there aren't any buildings on this side, and I've done that deliberately to allow the camera, sort of better access to the figures and the action and so on. But in this scenario, you're supposed to get the loot off of the either end of the main thoroughfare, so off this way, and this is where the main thoroughfare again kinks a little bit. It takes a bit of a dog leg and goes off the table that way, because here the Lucky Strike saloon is in the way. So I'll just read you the setup, and then talk a little bit about the rules themselves. Again, like in the previous game, I'm not going to talk too much about the rules, other than so that you can understand what's going on. I'm going to save that up for the comparison of all four sets of rules at the end of the series. So the directions for this one is the bad guys, that's the Outlaws, have just hit the local bank and are making their escape with the loot. They are split into three groups. One group of 2 models is stationed outside in the street within 20 centimetres of the bank's front entrance. So there they are. And very conveniently, like in the previous scenario, I can use the same 7 figures per side. So I've got Lawmen versus Outlaws, and the Outlaws are composed of the boss, who is the same character as in the previous scenario, a gunslinger, so ideally I can use that same figure as Emmett Nevitt, the gunslinger, and 5, what are they called, dudes. So all the other 5 are dudes, and they can be armed in exactly the same way. So the rules allow me to arm them with what this guy here, for instance, has a rifle. There isn't any difference. There is, you don't pay for the weapons, so it makes no difference whether, such as this figure here, has got 2 pistols or 1. There aren't rules for firing 2 pistols at once, such as there were in the previous set of rules. But anyway, there they are outside the front entrance of the bank. Very convenient, because it matches almost identically what we did in the previous game. So a single model may be placed on any rooftop within 60 centimetres of the bank's front entrance. So I do have, I don't know if I'll be able to show you this on the camera, but along the street here, on top of the Lucky Strike Saloon, and that is within 60 centimetres of the bank's front entrance, I've got an outlaw with a rifle. And then the rest are in the bank, ready to exit with their booty. So yeah, done that. Now it says their objective is to exit the gaming area by either end of the main street. So I've tried this game out, and I didn't notice that wording on in my previous game where I was just practicing the rules. But if you read that as a kind of continuous paragraph, it says the rest are in the bank ready to exit with the booty. Their objective is to exit the gaming area by either end of the main street. Now I played it in the previous game that all 7 figures, all 7 outlaws had booty, but looking at it again, I don't think that's the case. I think it's just the figures that are in the bank that have the booty, and it's their objective to exit the game area. So the figures such as the Gunslinger, I'm going to play in this game that they're not actually holding the booty. Right, the good guys, that's the lawmen, are divided into 4 groups as evenly as possible. 3 of the groups are placed in open ground at least 40 centimetres apart from each other and further than 30 centimetres from the bank entrance. 1 group is placed in a building enjoying breakfast or whiskey, further than 20 centimetres from any of the opposing groups. So I'll show you that where I've positioned them as we go through the game, except just to say that the 2 that are in the building are in here. Now the Lawman side is composed of an exactly equal number of points, so again that's worked out well how they've matched up from scenario to scenario. There is a sheriff and 1 of his deputies in there, and the deputy in there is armed with a shotgun, identical to the way he was a deputy in the previous game, armed with a shotgun. And then there are, and there is, I should say, a marshal. So this guy here I've now designated to be a marshal. So he is kind of the equivalent of the Gunslinger in terms of abilities and stats and so on. And then the other 5 figures are all deputies. So the sheriff, a marshal, and 5 deputies. So there's another deputy beside that figure there. Okay, now Dead Man's Hand is played partly using cards that come with the rule set. They're similar to normal playing cards in that it goes, there's a joker and an ace to king in 4 suits. In this particular scenario, each side is going to be playing with a full hand. So that is for the lawman. All of the cards of the red colour from 2 to 10, the jack through to the ace of hearts, and the joker, the red joker. And for the outlaws it's similar, it's all the black colours from 2 to 10, and then the jack to the ace of spades and the black joker. And you deal yourself, for this particular scenario, you deal yourself 5 cards which remain in, well, which begin in your hand. So there we are. They're quite high denominations. The Joker isn't. I think the Joker is the lowest value, but so we'll do the same thing here for the well, that's pretty low, so I haven't got a very good hand there. Now, this is where Dead Man's Hand, I find, my experience is it's not a very easy game to play solo. Already you can see that because I've shown, I know what's in both players' hands, so I'm going to have to sort of play it as though I'm ignorant of what's in the other hand and try and do it fairly there. But for solo war playing and for the purposes of a bat rep, it's pretty difficult to show. So that is the hand that the players are going to be starting off with. Now, the next thing is that at the beginning of each turn, each player turns over the top card in their pack. So these cards now are initiative cards. So the Outlaw side has turned up the Queen of Spades, and the Lawmen have turned up the Five of Hearts. They are going to be placed on a figure of the player's choice, and the way the game is played is that you play down the score. So ace is high, Joker is low, and you play it in that order. So the Queen is definitely a high card, 5 is a low card. So I want to place the Queen from the Outlaw's point of view on a figure that I want to act urgently, and the 5 is going to go on for the Lawman side on one that it isn't so important to move him at the beginning of the turn, or get him to fire, or perform the various actions, whatever. And again, this is another aspect of the game, makes it difficult to play solo, because the first player to place his player down against the figure, to make that decision and place the card, gains the initiative for that turn. It's a bit like a quick draw kind of scenario, and obviously playing single solo you can't do that. So I'm going to make up my mind about that and then get back to you. Okay, so I've given the high card for the Outlaws to the figure carrying the rifle, using the rifle on the rooftop there, and for the Lawman I've given the low card to the deputy with the shotgun, who is one of the 2 figures inside this building here. I've done that because he's in cover, safe within a building, so it won't matter if he's not as vulnerable to attack as some of the figures out in the street. So now what you do for the other figures is you deal cards blind to all the figures on the table. So for instance, the 2 Outlaws there, you just deal off the top of your deck blind, place them face down, cards against them. The difference with the scenario here for the Lawman is that only 3 of the figures get initiative cards in the first turn. The rest of them are what's called surprised, so they don't get cards, and they act at the end of the turn. So I'm going to go around the table now and just place cards face down against all of the various figures on the table, but only do that for 2 more of the lawmen. So the other 2 cards I placed for the lawmen are on the 2 figures who are facing off against the outlaws outside the front of the bank. And I'll go around the table now and turn them over. So that is a 2, that's pretty awful. 5. And then the Gunslinger has a Jack, not bad. The other chap has a 6. And then there are the remaining 4 outlaws in the bank. So the boss is right by the back door. He has got a 7. Next chap along has got an 8. Next chap along has got an ace. And next one has got the Joker, which is the lowest card. Right, now this gets me on to talking about the rules for movement and so on. I won't go too, as I say, I'm not going to go too much into depth in terms of the specific rules. I'll do that later, but I do find with Dead Man's Hand, the philosophy is that it's meant to be, I'll read you the sentence out, which is close to the beginning, all the sentences. We have made our game reflect a cinematic Hollywood version of the time. With this in mind, there may be occasions where as a gamer you may think, surely he cannot do that. If you find yourself considering that, just take a minute to reflect on the number of Western films that you have seen where the plain ridiculous has been presented on screen, and then reconsider. We want Dead Man's Hand to be a quick and deadly game where daring gameplay combined with a bit of pokercraft will lead to victory, or at the very least an enjoyable game for all. We want to encourage gamers to have their figures climbing onto buildings, running and leaping across roofs whilst firing at enemies all round, where doorways are a secondary way to enter a building, to diving through windows, and where at any moment the best laid plans can be brought crumbling down by simply playing the right card at the right time. So in other words, sort of you can enter and leave a building through a window as easily as a door. Personally, I find that a little bit difficult to play, especially if it's not a solo game, because in a solo game you can satisfy yourself that something is a reasonable move. But with those kind of instructions in the preamble at the beginning of the rules, you could get a player who simply kind of moves figures through things that clearly would have been difficult to move through. I mean, in the bank, for instance, how do you consider the windows of the till? They're iron barred, so clearly the figure wouldn't be able to move through those. So where you have a kind of complicated internal arrangement of the rooms in a building, does that mean you have to move towards the door? Difficult to sort of negotiate your way through all these various corners and so on. And this is just the ground floor. You've got upper story. You've got two more levels. You've got an upper story and then a ladder with a roof. Again, I'll keep this. I'll save this for my concluding video. But what I'm trying to say at the moment is that I've got to now move these figures. The first one I can move, or I have to move, is the chap who's holding the ace, and he is at the back of a queue of figures in a narrow corridor trying to get out the back door. The scenario doesn't even mention a back door, just talks about front entrance. So I've got a building that's got a back and a front entrance. So, what choices do I have for him now? And unfortunately, there are a few further limiting factors. One is that he is carrying loot and he has to leave the building in the first turn, and he gets 3 actions, but only because he's carrying loot, only 2 of those can be movement. So, you know, I think it's reasonable for him to move 2 moves to escape the building. This it's 10 centimeters is your movement distance for 1 move action. But whether or not he can squeeze past those 3 figures, I think I'm going to allow him to. Yeah, I think I'll allow him to. But that's just to give you an example of, you know, some of the limitations of these rules, I think, in terms of interpreting how figures can move and so on. And the other thing as well, I didn't mention when I dealt the hand out, but you will know if you play this game, or you know, would probably have made sense to you by now, is that the cards that are in the player's hands, you're not playing those for the denominations of the cards, you're playing for them for the special actions and abilities that are on the hands. So when you play a card for the action ability, then you draw, at the end of the turn, you draw another one off of the pile of the deck. Here we go then. So I should have mentioned as well, and it's not going to be the case for this particular action, but both sides have their own rules. So the Lawmen have 2 rules, and the Outlaws have 2 rules or abilities that they can play. But I'm not going to take advantage of those at the moment, so I'll discuss those a bit more as we get into it. So I'm going to declare that the character holding the ace is going to move twice, so he's going to leave the building, and then for his 3rd action, he is going to fire to shoot his pistol at that chap there. And then I'm also going to play a card from my hand, which I'll read to you, because you probably won't be able to read it on the camera. It says, play on one of your own models when it is activated, as long as it declares at least 1 move action. Following the model's actions, it may immediately take its bonus move action, or a bonus move action. So I think that will get me around the rule that the Outlaws are only allowed to make a maximum of 2 move actions. So I think that's fair. Right, so we can discard the ace now, and he moves once, twice, so he gets to about there. And you're allowed 1 pre-measurement from the starting position of the figure, and I haven't done that, but now obviously I need to measure the range from the firing figure to the target, and it's about 25 centimeters, so that is long range for a pistol. So we'll roll some dice now. Right now, if it were the boss or the Gunslinger, then there would be a bonus modifier for shooting, but that's not the case. It's just a simple dude. So you're going to roll a d20 and add or subtract various modifiers. So in his case, he's taking 2 move actions, so that's -1. It's at close range, I believe. Oh no, it's at long range, so that's another -1. And the target hasn't got any. There aren't any figures, factors for cover or anything like that. So it's just a roll on the d20, subtracting 2. And we rolled a 1. I might say now, actually, that in the previous game I played, there were a lot of extreme rolls, either 1s or 20s. But a roll of a natural 1 means that figure is out of ammo and will have to reload. And now, so that's firing over, pretty dreadful result to begin with, and now we get that bonus move where the outlaw is going to try and head off towards the exit point. And there are quite a lot of tokens, unlike with Legends of the Old West, which is no longer supported. Dead Man's Hand is. So I've got some MDF tokens, so we need an out of ammo one, which is the shell, and we need a counter to show that he's moved 3 times, because that makes him a little bit more of a difficult target, and so on. So we place those on the figure. So that's the end of that figure's turn, and now we go on to the next highest card denomination. Okay, next up, as far as I can see, is the Queen of Spades, which is the outlaw on the roof there. So he is going to fire with his rifle down onto the deputy there. Now, you are allowed pre-measurement. I have just pre-measured. You're allowed 1 pre-measurement at the beginning of the declaration. I just measured it, and it's just within close range, so it's just within 50 centimetres. So it's close range, and you're allowed 3 actions. The rifle is only allowed to fire once per turn, so that's obviously going to be one of the actions. And he's not going to be moving or anything like that. So rifles are allowed to take 2 aims. So he's going to aim twice, then fire at the deputy there, and from the Lawmen's point of view, they're going to play a card from their hand which says play on your own model when it is about to be shot. All out of action results, which is basically killed, become under fire and nerve test. Stays in play until the end of the turn. So I'm going to place that underneath that figure because it's right at the start of the turn, so it's possible he's going to be shot at later in the turn as well. So again, we're going to roll a d20, and the modifiers are aim shot, so we get +2 because he's taking 2 aims. So +2, and that is everything. So d20 +2, and it's a 20, so it's lucky, so that makes it 22. So he is well and truly, I told you there were extreme rolls with these dice, didn't I? First 2 rolls of the game, I rolled a 1 and a 20. Yeah, so he would normally be killed, but that takes him down to an under fire marker and a nerve test. And the way you take nerve tests is you roll a d10, and you have to beat a factor which is listed on the factions table. So deputies have a nerve of 4+, so I have to roll a d10 and get 4+, and I don't, so that means he takes a second under fire marker. Right, there we go then. It was a good job that I played that that card. So he has now got 2 under fire markers, so we put that there as well. For his particular type, he can go up to 4, but if he gets 4, then he's killed. They kind of represent wounds and basic confusion and loss of morale and all kinds of things. So he's up to 2 under fire markers. Okay, next up, as far as I can see, is the Gunslinger with the Jack of Spades. So he's armed with a pistol, and pistols are allowed to take 3 shooting actions in a turn. So I'm not going to, bother to aim or anything. Just going to take 3 shots, all at the marshal here. Try and take him down before he gets to play, and see if that has any effect. So the gunslinger is better at shooting, so he gets a +2 bonus automatically to each of his shots. And we'll just go through each roll in turn. So for the first one, it's +2 for his ability. Measure the range. I suspect it's going to be long range. 30 centimeters. So yeah, that is just within. It's just within range, and it is long range. So that's -1. So he's down to +1 at the moment, and no other factors. So it's a roll on the dice +1. And we get 15, so that goes up to a 16, which is an under fire marker and a nerve test. So in the marshal's case, he has got a nerve test of 3+. And we rolled a 3, so he's just done it. And then the second shot, so that was a roll on the dice +1, but now it's the second shot, so it's -1, so this is equals now. We rolled a 7, so that's a miss, and then the next one will be at -1 for the third shot. And it's a 9, -1 is a miss again. So fairly reasonable result, not brilliant. And there's the under fire marker on the marshal. Next up then, as far as I can see, is the 8 of clubs. So I'm going to move, that figure has to leave the bank in the first turn. So just looking around for, there it is, the movement marker. So he's going to move, and then shoot again at that character there. That's 1 move, 2 moves. So we have to put a token on him saying that he's moved twice, and then measure the range to the figure, which is 25 centimeters, so that is long range, and roll some dice again. Okay, taking 2 move actions is -1, long range is another -1, and nothing else, so it's 20 -2, d20 -2, 3 -2 is 1, but it's a natural 1, which would mean he was out of ammo, so that's just simply a miss. And next is the Seven of Spades, which is the boss, so the leader of the Outlaws, so he is going to move twice. You don't have to move the full distance, so he's just going to move alongside there. So he's made 2 movements, and he's going to fire at the same chap as well. So now in his case, he's got a shooting ability of +1, so he gets -1 for long range and -1 for taking 2 move actions, but he gets 1 back for being the boss. So this is a d20 -1. 11 -1 is 10, which unfortunately is a miss. 11 would have been a under fire marker. Next up then is the Six of Spades, and he's armed with a rifle. So he is going to fire at the marshal, take 2 aims, and then fire. And the distance is 30 centimeters, which is close range. There's no such thing as point blank range with a rifle. So here we go again, some dice rolling. So we get +2 for aiming twice and nothing else, so it's d20 +2. Oh, 19 +2 is 21. That kills the marshal before he's had a chance to do anything. So he is dead. Had that been another shot on this chap here, it would have, because that card is still in play, it would have just been a nerve test and a under fire marker. But the marshal has been killed before he's had a chance to do anything. So first casualty of the game. Next play then, the Lawmen finally get a turn, 5 of hearts, and that's the deputy with the shotgun. So as I sort of intimated at the beginning of the video, I'm not going to play that they can leap through windows. I think that's sort of unrealistic, really. He wouldn't do that when there's a door next to it anyway. So 1 move, 2 moves gets him to about there, and then he could fire both barrels of his shotgun, I think. I'll have to look that rule up off camera, but he's not going to, because it would leave him needing to reload his shotgun. So he's going to take 1 shot at the chap with the rifle there. So that is 22 centimeters. So he's out of range. So let's just look at that again. 22, yeah. Close range is up to 20, and there isn't a long range. So he's blown his third. Not he. Oh, I suppose. Yeah, it's too late now. I said what I was going to do. So I suppose he should really have taken a third move. But that's the game. So I'm going to put a 2 move marker on him, and then move on to the next card. Okay, next up then it's this card here, the 2 of hearts. So this character is going to take 2 actions to recover the 2 under fire markers, and then fire once at the Gunslinger there. So we know that is long range. So it's -1 for being long range, and having got rid of those under fire markers, he doesn't get any negative modifiers for that. So it's just 20 -1, d20 -1. Oh wow, another high roll. 20 -1 is 19. 19 and 20 are both killed. So some pretty lethal shooting in the first round going on, and it's an important figure coming off the table, the Gunslinger. So another fatality. Okay, and then the only other initiative card to play is the Joker here. So again, this figure is limited because he's carrying loot. He's limited to a maximum of 2 move actions, but he has to leave the bank in the first turn, and he can just about do it if you kind of imagine that measure is bending a little bit. So he's now out of the bank and he's got a third action to take, but I think he's not able to shoot because he's out of range. So we'll just show you that, measure that. Yeah, he is actually just within 30. I would say that one is slightly closer, so he's going to take a shot at him. Okay, so it's d20 minus 1 for having moved twice, and minus another one for long range. 18. Minus 2 goes down to 16, and that is an under fire marker and a nerve test, and that deputy has a nerve of 4 plus. No, oh yeah, it fell back just before. I was wondering whether that was cocked, so that's 5, so he's past that, so he gets a single under fire marker. Okay, now the all the players, all the figures that were on the Lawmen's side that didn't get an initiative card because they were surprised, now get to act. So the first one off is that there's a deputy armed with a rifle. Here he is going to fire at the other outlaw at the front of the bank there, and the range is 48 centimetres, so it's just within range. He's just within close range. He is going to aim twice and fire once. So he gets +2 for the aiming, and nothing else. 8 plus 2 is 10, so it's just a miss. 11 would have been a under fire marker. Next up, the sheriff is going to move twice. So he ends up here and fire once at the outlaw. And it's a range of 23, so it's long range. So taking 2 movements is -1, long range is another -1, and that's it. Oh, and he gets a +1 because he's a sheriff, so it's d20 -1. 13 -1 is 12. So we place an under fire marker on the outlaw, and we need to find, there we are. So there's an under fire marker on the outlaw and 2 movement token on the sheriff. Right, now it's just these 2 lawmen here to activate. As I said, each faction has 2 specific rules, and one of the lawmen's abilities is to be able to remove an under fire marker at the end of the turn. So as I know the lawmen aren't going to get any more under fire markers, and there aren't any more on the table. If I waste an action to get rid of that, or if I use an action to get rid of that, then I'm wasting my special ability at the end. So I think I'm going to leave that on, and maybe just move him once so he doesn't get a penalty for moving twice. So he is going to move to there, and then he is going to fire twice at, can you see that on the camera? This character here, because the boss is harder to hit. So he's going to take 2 shots at that character there. Okay, so he doesn't get -1 for 2 move actions because he only took 1. The range is 16 centimeters, so it's close range but not point blank. But he does get a negative modifier for having an under fire marker. So his first shot is a D20 -1. And it's a 1 again. I'm not sure about these dice, you know, I've only just bought them, and they do seem to roll a lot of 1s and 20s. But a natural 1 means that his second shot isn't possible because he is now, where is he? He has now got an out of ammo marker on him. So the only thing left to do then is the final Lawman. It's going to do a similar thing. Going to move once and fire twice at the same figure. So he hasn't got an under fire marker, so the first roll is a straightforward D20 without any modifiers. Oh, 17, yeah. So that is an under fire marker and a nerve test, and I think it's 3+ for the dudes. Oh no, 4+, yeah, sorry, big one, 4+. It's only a 3, so he gets a second under fire marker. And then the second shot is at a -1 modifier. 7 -1 is 6, so that's a miss. So that is all the actions taken for turn 1. Okay, so at the end of the turn, thing we can do for this specific scenario, now that the figures are all left the buildings, is to put them sort of back together again so it looks a little bit more realistic. And as I say, the lawmen are allowed to take off, so I'm taking off 1 under fire marker, and then you remove all of the move markers. So you just go around the table taking off any move markers like that you can see. And if you played any cards from your hand, then you can deal yourself another card. So that's an interesting point, that if you use 2 cards in one hand, in one turn, you're only allowed to replace 1 of them, so you can sort of burn your hand as well, as it were, and you know, use up your hand that way, because you're only allowed to restore 1. And then we're on to the next turn. Okay, next turn then, and first thing you do then is to draw a card off the top of each of the players' decks, and this would be the point at which they would decide where to place those cards, which figure to place those cards on. They're both, one's sort of average, but the other one is quite low. So the player would have to make their decision, place the card on the figure that they choose, and the fastest one to get the card down gains the initiative for that turn. And all that means is, in the case of if there are 2 initiative cards being played of equal value, the player with the initiative gets to go first. So as we can't do that playing solo, what I'm going to do is roll 2 dice, and the highest dice roll is deemed to be the player who got their card down first. So white for Lawmen, black for Outlaws, and it's 20 to 1. Now that just demonstrates what I'm saying about these dice. They just seem to keep rolling extremes, either 20s or 1s. It's a bit spooky really, but anyway, so the Lawmen will have the initiative in the next turn. So what I'm going to do now is off camera deal the cards face down to, make my decision about where those initiative cards are going to go, deal the rest of the cards down face down, and in this turn now all of the Lawmen's figures will get a card, and then show you the outcome of that. Right, so all the cards have been placed and revealed, and I thought I would at this point use one of the Outlaws abilities. It seems silly to waste the opportunity, if it's there. And the ability is cheating, so it says once per game. Yeah, so it's maybe not the right time to do it. But I'll do it now anyway. Once per game, following reveal of initiative cards, may swap 1 card in hand with one of their initiative cards. So over this side here, the Lawmen don't have particularly high scoring cards. There's a 4 and a 3, whereas all of the Outlaws have a higher card than that. But I think what I'm going to do is take a card out of the Outlaw's hand, which is a 10, and replace the 5 there, which is still higher than the 3 and the 4. But it will give me that card in my hand, which is a stumble card. So it can interrupt an opposing player's movement. So it's quite a useful card to have in your hand. Okay, so this is the Lawman's hand here, and the activations are about to begin, and the first figure to be activated would be an outlaw who's holding the King of Spades. But before we do that, I'm actually going to play a card from the Lawman's hand here, which is the Joker, and it says play before any models are activated. You must swap 3 of your models' initiative cards with 3 of the opposing player's models. You may only swap less than 3 initiative cards if there are less than 3 models on either side. So I'm going to use this to flummox that situation I had around the rear of the bank, and sort of steal the King of Spades and 2 other cards from the Outlaws and give them those low denomination cards that the Lawmen seem to have been dealt this turn. Okay, and as a result of that, the situation at the back of the bank has completely altered. It's a bit odd in that, there are red and black cards on opposite sides to what they're intended now, but I suppose that sorts itself out once you've played them and they go back into the various discard piles. But now this deputy here is holding the King of Spades, so he's going to move first, and his declared actions are that he's going to move, aim, and then shoot at the boss. So he moves that amount of distance. So he's now certainly what's point blank range. Then he aims once and fires a single shot at the boss. Okay, so he's only taken 1 move action, so that isn't a penalty. It's now point blank range, which for a pistol is +2. Point blank range is within 10 centimetres. So +2, aim shot +3, and to hit a boss is -1. So I've got +2 to my dice roll. So D20 +2. Ha! 3. So a miss. Okay, next highest card that I can see. There were 2 10s, but they're both possessed by Lawmen now. So we're going to play this Lawmen next. And he is going to take 1 move to reload, 1 move to aim, and then a 3rd move to shoot his pistol at that chap there. So it's close range, which is 0, so it's straightforward modifier of +1 for an aimed shot. 12 + 1 is 13, which is an under fire marker placed on that outlaw, who already has 2 under fire markers on him, I believe. Yeah. Okay, so as well as swapping the King of Spades, which was on that figure, for a figure around the back of the bank, I also swapped 10 of Spades, which was around the back of the bank, with this figure's card. So he is now the next to activate, and I'm allowed 1 pre-measurement, so I've done that already, but I'll just show you. It's actually just below 20 centimetres to get to that figure there. So what I'm going to do, because he's armed with a shotgun, and point blank range for a shotgun is below 10 centimetres. Yeah, I'm going to move once and then fire twice, because there are 2 barrels to the shotgun. That will mean that the shotgun needs to be reloaded, but it's very powerful at point blank range. So I think I'm probably likely to kill that outlaw. So here we go. So that's 1 move, and it's now within point blank range. And we can take 2 shots at him. So the first shot is +4 to hit at point blank range, and can't see any other modifiers, so D20 +4. 16 +4, 20, dead. But I think I have to play it as well that he does fire his second shot, so that means that he will need to reload next turn. But that is another outlaw figure off of the table. Okay, next up we've got 2 9s, 1 on each side. So as the lawmen have the initiative, it's going to be this chap with the rifle firing next. Now rifles don't have a point blank range, they have a close range and a long range, and the long range is anything over 51, it's anything over 50 centimetres. So that means effectively if they can see it, they can shoot at anything on the table. So he's going to aim twice and shoot once at, where is he? Way over the other side of the table. There's the Lucky Strike Saloon, and on top of the Lucky Strike Saloon is an outlaw rifleman. So he's going to take 2 aims and shoot at him, and that hoarding that he's behind will count as substantial cover. Right, here we go then. So all the modifiers cancel each other out. It's -1 for the cover, -1 for the long range, +2 for taking 2 aims. So straightforward result of a D20. And we've got a 6, so he doesn't hit anything. Okay, next up then we've got this 9 of spades here on this figure here, and he is going to move once, aim, and then shoot at that chap there. So he will be again in point blank range of that figure. Right, so he hasn't moved twice, so he doesn't get a movement penalty. It is point blank range, which for a pistol is +2, and he's aiming his shot, so it's +3. And I can't see anything else, so d20 +3. (11 + 3 is 14, which is an under fire marker on the deputy. Next up then is an 8 of diamonds. So the sheriff is going to take, he hasn't really got a viable target over this side any longer, so he's going to try and get out of the way of that line of sight of that rifleman on the roof. So he's going to take 3 move actions and just move through the gap between the 2 buildings here and possibly emerge in sight of the Outlaws to take a shot next turn. I don't know. See how it gets to. That's 1, 2. No, he doesn't get that far. He's kind of almost, he's sort of about that level there. And then next up there are 2 7s with 1 held for each side. So again, it'll be the Lawmen who goes first because they've got the initiative. So this chap here won't be able to get out of line of sight of the rifleman on the roof. So he's just going to take 3 moves. Will make him a more difficult target. So he's going to end up about there. Okay, the next 7 then is one of the ones that I swapped. So it's not. It's this one here. I didn't swap this one. It's a black card. So the boss is going to aim and then shoot twice at that deputy there. So when you aim, it only counts. The aiming bonus only counts for the first shot. Okay, so the first shot, boss gets a +1 to hit for his character, another +1 for aiming, and a +2 for it being point blank range. So d20 +4. 8 + 4 is 12, which is an under fire marker. So the deputy now has 2 under fire markers, and then the next shot is a -1 for a second shot, so it'd be d20 +3. No, it won't, d20 +2 because it's not aimed either. And that is a 6 + 2 is 8, which is a miss. Next up then we have a 4, which is the outlaw on the roof with the rifle. So he's got 2 targets he can shoot at, 2 deputies here. One of them is within close range but has moved 3 times, and the other one is at long range but hasn't moved at all. So that would be -1 for long range. That would actually be -3 for 3 movements. So he's going to take a shot at the deputy. So he's going to aim twice, fire once. Okay, so it's -1 for the range, +2 for the aiming, which means it's +1 on the d20 dice roll. And it's 9 +1 is still a miss. Okay, so it's just these 2 3s now, which are both possessed by the Outlaws. So this chap is going to reload for 1 action and then move twice. He's only allowed to move twice. Oh no, hang on. If he reloads, that's 2 actions as well, because he's carrying loot. That's part of the scenario rules. So 2 actions to reload, and then 1 further action. He's just going to move back towards the table edge and the exit. And then the other chap is going to take 2 actions to recover twice. So he will go down to 1 under fire marker, and then he's going to take his final action to shoot at that deputy there and see if he can get a hit on him. Okay, so it's pistol at point blank range is +2, but he does have 1 under fire marker still, so that's -1. And that's everything, so it's d20 plus 1. Oop, in the tray. 20, so that deputy figure there comes off the table. Next turn then, and I've dealt another card into the Lawmen's hand because they played one card out of their hand last turn. So the next thing to do then is to turn over the top of each deck as the initiative card that we can choose where to place. So they're both fairly high scoring cards. And the person with Lawmen is white dice, Outlaws black, and the highest one is the one that's deemed to have placed their card down first of all on a figure. So again, it's the Lawmen, but only by 1 this time, so the Lawmen have the initiative again in the next turn. And I'll place all the initiative cards, turn them over, and then start playing the third turn, show you that. Okay, so I've dealt out all the initiative cards, turned them over, played a card from the Outlaw's hand to allow me to swap 2 of the opposing cards, so the Lawman's cards, over, and that means that there's a Lawman over to the rear of the bank, the single one left over there, who's got a number 2 card now. There are 2 10s on the table, which are the 2 highest cards, one owned by each side. So the Lawmen have the initiative, so the Lawman with the 10 of hearts will activate first, and he is going to move once to there. Still doesn't get him to within 10 point blank, but moving once won't penalise him. And then he's going to aim once and fire once at that outlaw there. So it's just +1 for the aim shot, so d20 plus 1. Ooh, 19 plus 1 means that outlaw is dead. Now that is significant, actually. I'll show you why. Right, there we go then. So this character is dead. He is the 3rd outlaw to be taken out of action, and I will comment on this a lot more in a later video when I talk about the rules, but it does say for this particular scenario that the scene ends when the good guys have 3 men out of action, or the bad guys have 3 men out of action, or if the bad guys get away with at least half of their loot. He is the 3rd bad man to be taken out of action, so I can only interpret that as that is the end of the game. So it's a very short, I mean it's only the beginning of the 3rd turn and the game is over. I think partly the rules are intended to be played as sort of different episodes, so this heist is the 2nd of 3 episodes in because it's sort of like it uses cinematic kind of Hollywood style language. They're described as not scenes. I can't remember, but each scenario is a scene, and the heist is the 2nd scene from what's called a fistful of models. So presumably that's a film. But anyway, it's all over. The Lawmen won again, so similar outcome to the previous game, that the bank raid was foiled. Not much else to say about it really. Yeah, it's an enjoyable game, an interesting game, meant to be short, you know, so you could get, I mean this only took an hour or so, probably a bit longer with me filming it and so on, but it's probably only about an hour's game. So at a club you could have several, you could play the whole film in an afternoon of gaming. So it's a very enjoyable game. I'll reserve my comparisons of it to other rule sets until the final video. So in the meantime, just to say, hope you've enjoyed that, and see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.